They tell you the courtroom is the one place where everyone's supposed to be equal, where the law doesn't care what you look like or where you come from. And I used to believe that honestly I did right up until the morning I walked into courtroom 7A and realized the decision had already been made before I ever opened my mouth. The judge didn't even bother hiding it. The way her eyes stopped on me for half a second too long, the way her jaw tightened, like she'd just smelled something unpleasant that told me everything I needed to know. In that room, justice wasn't blind. It was staring straight at me, and it didn't like me at all. I remember thinking, here we go again, you know what I mean? That feeling you get when you've lived long enough to recognize the pattern before it fully reveals itself. Same play, different stage. I'd worn my best suit that day, nothing flashy, just clean, sharp, respectful. I wanted to look like someone who took the process seriously. Turns out that was the problem. She hated it. I could tell. In her mind, I was supposed to come in looking small, nervous, already apologizing for existing. Instead, I walked in calm, head up, and she took that as a personal insult. The bailiff called my name State versus Isaac Sterling, and when I stepped forward, she glanced down at the file like it was a formality, like the story was already written. "You're late," she said, tapping her pen, not even looking at the clock. I checked the time anyway because details matter. "Your Honor, my hearing's set for 9:30. It's 9:27. She smiled. Then, not a friendly smile, more like the kind you see right before someone twists the knife. "In my courtroom, if you're not seated and waiting, you're late." Yeah, that happened. She asked where my lawyer was already sounding annoyed, and I explained calmly that my attorney had been delayed due to a flight issue, but I was ready to proceed for the arraignment. That's when she leaned back in her chair, eyes lighting up like she'd just been handed a gift. "So you're representing yourself?" I nodded. "For today." She loved that. I could practically see the wheels turning. Judges like her loved pro se defendants because it gave them room to maneuver, room to dominate. "I love when defendants do that," she said, and the way she said love made my stomach tighten. The prosecutor stood up, some nervous guy who kept adjusting his tie, reading the police report like it was gospel. Traffic stop, disorderly conduct, failure to comply, aggressive tone. You've heard it before. I stood there listening, hands behind my back, feeling the temperature in the room drop. The judge shook her head dramatically and muttered, "Typical," loud enough for the mic to catch. Then she looked straight at me. "Do you have anything to say for yourself, or are you just going to stand there in that expensive suit and pretend you're above the law?" That one stung not because it was clever, but because it was so familiar. I took a breath and said what any reasonable person would say. "I plead not guilty, Your Honor, and I request that the dashcam footage from the arrest be entered into evidence." She laughed sharp and dismissive. "You don't make demands in my courtroom, boy. You make requests." Boy. That word hit the room like a slap. I felt it in my chest, but I didn't react. That's what she wanted. She wanted me loud, angry, emotional, so she could paint me exactly the way she already saw me. "No problem, Your Honor," I said. "I'm taking notes." Her smile vanished. She set bail at $50,000 cash. People gasped. $50,000 for a traffic stop. It wasn't about ensuring I showed up. It was about punishing me for not bowing. I explained calmly that I had no record, no reason to flee. She slammed the gavel. "I decide who's a flight risk." Then she added almost casually, "Out-of-state plates. No ties here. Attitude problem." I reached into my jacket slowly and the bailiff tensed. I pulled out my checkbook. "Will the court accept a cashier's check, or should my bank wire the funds?" The look on her face, then pure rage. Not because I broke the law, but because I didn't break. She ordered me held anyway, told them to process it slowly, let me sit. As they cuffed me, I looked back and said, "Please make sure the record reflects the bail amount and the terminology used." She shouted for them to get me out. What she didn't know, what she couldn't imagine, was that every word she'd said was already being transmitted to a secure server miles away. Because the truth is, I wasn't just another defendant. I was exactly where I needed to be. The holding cell was cold and filthy, designed to make people fold. I didn't. I sat there replaying everything, every word, every tone. This wasn't random. This wasn't one bad judge on a bad day. This was a pattern, and I'd seen it before, just usually from the other side of the table. Because outside that courthouse, my job was investigating public corruption. Judges, prosecutors, officials who thought the bench made them untouchable. And she had been on our radar for years. Complaints, disparities, stories that all sounded the same. But nothing solid, nothing you could take to a grand jury, Until me. 3 days later, she rushed the next hearing, denied motions before my attorney finished speaking, threatened contempt, promised years in prison over attitude. She was sloppy, emotional, confident. That's when we decided to tighten the trap. A file appeared on the prosecutor's desk, financial records suggesting offshore accounts. Fake but convincing. He didn't report it, didn't question it. He ran straight to her. And she did exactly what we knew she would do. She didn't see a crime. She saw money. In her chambers behind closed doors, she made the offer. No contest plea. Time served. Probation. Then came the real condition. $250,000 of voluntary donation to a law enforcement fund she controlled. If I refused, she promised to deny every motion, smear me, seize assets, and sentence me anyway. It wasn't justice. It was extortion. And it was all on tape. The team wanted to move in immediately. I told them no. I wanted her on the record, in open court. I wanted her to destroy the evidence herself. The trial was packed. Locals came to watch like it was entertainment. The officer lied on the stand. The prosecutor nodded along. When my attorney presented the dash cam footage proving my innocence, she lost it, ruled it inadmissible, threatened contempt, suppressed evidence without blinking. That was the moment, the final nail. When I took the stand, she leaned forward and hissed, "You are in my house. I am the law." I stood, reached into my pocket, and the room froze. I held up my badge. "Federal agent," I said, "and you are under arrest." The doors burst open. Agents flooded the room. The prosecutor was cuffed, the bailiff disarmed. She sat there, frozen robe heavy on her shoulders, power draining from her face. For the first time in decades, she wasn't in control. Months later at sentencing, the evidence was overwhelming. Recordings, witnesses, financial trails. The suppressed footage played on a massive screen. The jury deliberated less than 3 hours. 25 years. No parole. Assets seized. When they led her away, she looked at me, searching for something. Satisfaction, anger. I gave her nothing. 6 months after that, I went back. The courthouse doors were open. Music played outside. Families laughed on steps that once terrified them. People who never thought they'd see justice finally did. And as I drove away, I couldn't stop thinking about how close this all came to never happening. How many people didn't have a wire or a badge or a second chance? That's what this story is really about. Not revenge, not power. It's about how dangerous unchecked authority becomes when no one pushes back. So here's what I want to ask you. Was justice served the moment she was arrested, or only when the people she hurt finally got their lives back? And how many are still waiting? Drop your thoughts in the comments, argue with me. If you want, share your own story. If you've lived something